So they're recording.
Yes. Looks like we have quite a few people who have joined us. Can everyone see the screen for the presentation?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'll give it about a minute and then I will get started. Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephen Waller, a senior planner in the Fairfax County Department of Planning and Development's Planning Division. And I would like to thank you all for attending tonight's Providence District Community Screening Meeting to review and discuss site-specific plan amendment nominations on Leesburg Pike in the Jefferson Planning District. Tonight's meeting is being recorded, so we kindly request for everyone to remain muted. And if you wish to speak, then please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen so one of our meeting co-hosts or I can call on you. And please feel free to enable your video too if you wish. Some versions of Zoom may have a reactions button that will need to be clicked before you see a raised hand option. But anyone who does not wish to provide their feedback verbally can also place their comments and questions in the chat box as well. So we'll begin with a look at tonight's agenda. To start off, I'll provide a brief overview of the comprehensive plan, which provides guidance for how Fairfax County manages future growth and development. And then I'll explain where the SSPA process fits within the ways that we can respond to changes that impact land use and development. From there, we'll spend most of our time together focusing on two Providence District SSPA nominations for Eaves Fairfax Towers and a consolidated site of buyer tracts in the Gordon Road Triangle. The countywide SSPA process provides an opportunity for property owners and other members of the public to propose land use changes as nominations to amend the comprehensive plan for a single site or a collection of parcels. The goal of SSPA is to provide the community with an active role in shaping the long-term vision of Fairfax County. Prior to SSPA, many of you may have participated in or have been familiar with the Area Plans Review Process, or APR, which was a similar type of community-initiated review for the comprehensive plan. The purpose for tonight's meeting is to provide the county with information about the site-specific plan amendment process and to invite public comments on SSPA nominations that were submitted in the Providence Supervisor District. But it's very important to note that no decisions are being made for any of the proposals. So there will be additional opportunities for members of the community to provide additional feedback. So before we dive into the site-specific plan amendment process, I first wanted to go back and also recognize that some of my colleagues who are joining me tonight. We have Leah Niebauer, who's another planner in the Department of Planning and Development, and also Mo Ali, who's also a planner in our branch, in our division. I'm sorry. So also there are representatives here tonight from Supervisor Palchik's Dahlia Palchik's Providence Supervisor District Office. And I'm sorry that I failed to do that earlier, but I just wanted to acknowledge that county staff and that there are other county staff and representatives here with me tonight. So before we dive into the site-specific plan amendment process, we'd like to be sure that everyone is familiar with the comprehensive plan and can understand the ways that it is structured to focus on long-range land use planning while also respecting the legacy of existing conditions of the built and natural environment. The comprehensive plan, or the plan for short, is the primary document that we use to guide Fairfax County's decision-making process related to land development and resource protection over the long term. It is important to note that the plan is not law like the zoning ordinance. Instead, it provides land use recommendations and serves as a living document that should be evaluated and reevaluated over time to ensure that the county's land use policies continue to reflect community values, visions, and goals as development occurs. The site-specific plan amendment process is just one of the ways that these changes can be initiated and possibly lead to a process for amending the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan introduces a variety of land use terms. Two of the most common ways that we refer to the quantity of development on a specific site or within a defined area are density and intensity. And these are terms that will be used throughout tonight's discussion of the SSPA nominations. Here in the aerial images, we can see the differing forms that development has taken on in the Jefferson district along Leesburg Pike. On the left, we have low-density residential neighborhoods, mid-rise multifamily dwellings, and commercial shopping strips with surface parking lots near the site of Eaves Fairfax Towers. In the image on the right, the Beyer tract has low-rise buildings that serve a variety of commercial services that include retail, restaurant, auto sales, and repair, along with other types of service uses. Residential density is most often measured in dwelling units per acre, and this exhibit provides some examples of typical building forms and housing types established at various densities throughout the county. Fewer dwelling units per acre is a less dense development. For instance, low-density development is often represented by single-family detached dwellings in areas recommended to develop with up to four dwelling units per acre.
Stephen, are you showing slides?
Yes, can you not see them?
No.
I can see them on my side.
I can see them.
Okay.
Sorry. My fault.
Okay. I'm not sure. There may be a view that you can select that focuses on the slideshow rather than because I can't see the slideshow either, but myself, but I can see the one I'm presenting from. So you may have to work with your different views.
Okay.
So townhomes are normally start at 8 dwelling units per acre and could go up to 16 dwelling units per acre. And development of more than 16 dwelling units per acre is most often in the form of multifamily apartments and condominiums at the higher end of the density spectrum and in mid to high rise building forms. Floor area ratio, or FAR, is the term that is most used to describe the intensity of non-residential and mixed-use development, which can also combine both residential uses and non-residential uses like offices, retail, and services. To calculate FAR, we divide the floor area of building space by the land area within the development site. In the example shown here, we can see 3 design scenarios that would all yield an intensity of 1.0 FAR on a 100,000 square foot parcel. First, we have a 4-story building with 25,000 square feet on each floor, covering 1/4 of the site. Next, we can see a 2-story building with 50,000 square feet on each floor, covering 1/2 of the site. And last, there's a 1-story building covering the entire 1,000 square foot site area. Again, these are all examples of sites that are built out at 1.0 FAR, but I'll also note that these different building forms can also help us to compare the amount of ground space that is taken up by each type of development in contrast to how much open space is remaining. The site-specific plan amendment screening process is where we are today, and it is at the very beginning of the development cycle. There are a few ways to amend the comprehensive plan, and the SSPA process allows any member of the community to submit a request for the Board of Supervisors to consider making changes. To do so, they'll nominate a proposal and provide a written justification for why the change is needed along with some very preliminary concepts. These nominations are generally for one or a few parcels that the nominator has an interest in. Screening is the process that the county uses to decide which proposals align best with the county's policies and goals, and therefore have the merit for consideration as a more detailed plan amendment. Basically, SSPA helps the board decide where the county should focus its efforts, and it relies on the community to assist in that decision. At the end of the process, the Planning Commission will recommend changes to the Comprehensive Plan Amendment Work Program, which provides a list of all the plan amendments that are in the pipeline for future consideration. In the creation of the work program, the board also decides which of the amendments will be worked on now, and then they'll also identify others that may need additional information or time before they can be studied. But to reiterate, the SSPA process is used to determine which proposals should be considered for a future amendment. However, the process does not amend the plan or grant any entitlements for development to occur at this time. So tonight's meeting is all about gathering community feedback on each of the 3 SSP nominations on Leesburg Pike in the Jefferson Planning District. But first, let's look at the questions that were considered in staff's initial review of the nominated proposal, and that you'll hear about for each one later tonight. Does this nomination address emerging community interests? Does the nomination advance the objectives of the county's comprehensive plan and/or a concept for future development? Does the nomination align with the goals of board adopted policies? Does the nomination balance public resources with a public benefit? Is the current use of the comprehensive plan recommendation, is the current use or comprehensive plan recommendation that's currently adopted in the plan viable? Is it still viable? So here we can see the anticipated timeline for the 2025 SSPA program. The period for acceptance of SSPA nominations was open for 1 month between January 13th and February 13th. And this year, nominators were able to submit online using the county's Excella Plus system for the first time. After that, the Board of Supervisors accepted 43 nominations for screening as an action item on their public meeting agenda on March 4th. This week marks the 3rd of 4 weeks when community screening meetings are being held through mid-April. The Planning Commission will hold 3 public screening workshops between May and early June to evaluate each nomination and develop recommendations to be considered by the Board of Supervisors when they decide which nominations are to be added to the 2025 Comprehensive Plan Work Program for formal study as plan amendments. And then they will hold their own public hearing. For that, they'll hold their own public hearing, which is tentatively been scheduled for June 10th. SSPA community screening meetings provide members of the community like you with an opportunity to learn more and discuss these nominations. The information that we learn from you tonight will also be provided for consideration by the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors when determining which of these nominations should be authorized for placement on the 2025 Plan Amendment Work Program for further study and in-depth analysis as comprehensive plan amendments. If a nomination passes through screening and the board adds it to the work program, the board will prioritize its review and public engagement schedule along with all the other plan amendments that are on the work program. And that doesn't just note that doesn't just include the SSPA nominations, but there are also current ongoing plan amendments that will also be prioritized or reprioritized with the new work program. In short, some nominations may be ready for immediate review, while others could require additional thought and effort by the nominators before staff is directed to allocate any additional time to the review. If a nomination does not pass screening, it is not added to the Plan Amendment Work Program, and it will be removed from further consideration in the 2025 SSPA cycle. Properties that are subject to an unsuccessful nomination could still have the potential to be redeveloped under current recommendations of the adopted comprehensive plan or in compliance with the zoning ordinance and or prior zoning approvals. Nominations could also be submitted for the same property during future SSPA cycles if they demonstrate that changes have been made to the proposal or in other circumstances that relate to land use of for the specific site. So before we zoom in on the site-specific plan amendments that we'll be screening tonight, we also thought it would be helpful to look at the countywide numbers first. In the 2025 SSPA cycle, 53 nominations were submitted across all planning districts and magisterial districts. This plan map shows the geographic distribution of the SSPA nominations that made it through the nomination phase on March 4th, when the Board of Supervisors voted to accept 43 of those 53 nominations to move forward into screening. In the Providence District, 9 sites have been accepted. And here you can see that they are all in the eastern side of the Providence District between Route 29 and Dulles Toll Road. And we have 2 nominations for sites on Route 7 or Leesburg Pike that will be screened by the community this evening. The two nomination sites that we'll be discussing tonight. The two nominations that we'll be discussing tonight are for sites in the Jefferson District's J10 Jefferson North Community Planning Sector, which is recommended to develop as suburban neighborhoods. The concept for future development provides us with a high-level vision for development that conforms with the adopted guidance of the comprehensive plan's area plans. The concept is presented both in map form and in the body of the area plan text to set forth a vision for the ways that development should be established within specific areas of the county. Looking at the concept in map form here generally allows us to see where population growth and development are primarily encouraged to be concentrated in the color-coded mixed-use centers or special planning areas of Fairfax County, like the Tyson's Urban Center, suburban centers like Maryfield, and community business centers that you see in the red distributed throughout the county. Suburban neighborhoods are the yellow dotted areas that we have outlined here in the legend, and also including the areas that we've circled to identify where tonight's nominations are located. The adopted plan notes that suburban neighborhoods contain a broad mix of allowable residential density, styles, and parks and open space, and supporting neighborhoods serving commercial uses are also encouraged if the proposed intensities and character are compatible with the surrounding area. The adopted plan also identifies the section of Route 7 or Leesburg Pike between Tyson's in the northwest and the City of Falls Church and West Falls Church Metro Rail Station in the southeast as one of the county's enhanced public transportation corridors. Enhanced public transportation corridors are recommended for major public multimodal transportation improvements, providing alternatives to automobile travel, such as shared use paths for pedestrians and or cyclists and bus rapid transit or BRT, both of which are included in the recommendations for improving this portion of Route 7. Stars provided on the map show that the 2 nominated sites being considered tonight and shows the 2 nominated sites that are being considered tonight in relationship to future BRT stations recommended for Patterson Road and Chestnut Street along Route 7. So this is the order that will be followed for the screening of each SSPA nomination. I will first provide a brief overview of the existing conditions and adopted guidance of the comprehensive plan. Then we will touch on changes that are being proposed to the plan and the amount of development that could result from those changes. From there, I will summarize staff's initial findings on the preliminary planning considerations that should be priorities if the Board of Supervisors determine that either of these nominations should be added to the work program for further study as plan amendments. So our first nomination is CPN-2025-Roman numeral I-PR for Providence District -014 or PR-014 for short. And this is for the site of Eaves Fairfax Towers, which contains nearly 17 acres on the south side of Pemmott Drive at the intersection of Route 7 in the Jefferson North Community Planning Sector. The concept for future development recommends for areas of Jefferson North to develop as suburban neighborhoods, which are noted to contain a broad mix of allowable residential densities. At the baseline, the subject site is recommended for high-rise residential uses up to 16 to 20 dwelling units per acre, and currently developed with 415 high-rise multifamily apartment units. The nominator proposes a plan amendment for an alternative option that would allow additional infill development of residential mixed-use development up to an intensity of 1.63 FAR, or in density terms, that would be around 58 dwelling units per acre. This would include preservation of affordability for up to 100 existing apartment units that are confirmed to be renting at 80% of the average mean income level within those existing 415 units. New infill development on the site proposes an addition of up to 576 residential units in a new 7-story multifamily residential building with 437 units and 139 single-family attached and/or stacked townhouses, which would create an overall total of 991 total dwelling units on the subject site. The Department of Planning and Development's initial screening has identified the following planning considerations for this nomination. First, the proposal includes the preservation of 100 rental apartment units that are currently affordable at 80% of the average mean income level, or AMI. Guidance of the adopted plan's housing preservation policy element already allows development proposing the preservation of housing affordability to apply for bonus density through a rezoning. Rezoning applications are required to demonstrate alignment with the adopted policy plan's residential development criteria, objectives for compatibility with the surrounding area, and guidance for addressing project impacts that are also applicable in consideration for a comprehensive plan amendment. The final considerations that have been identified are that the nomination proposes dedication of right-of-way along Route 7 to support multimodal transportation improvements, and this is also something that would be anticipated in the review of a rezoning application. Lastly, public accessible parks and amenities should be appropriately designed and adequately sized to support any increased density on this site. So those are the considerations that staff recommends to be included if this is to be studied as a plan amendment. But we've also made an initial determination that this a proposal to increase density on this site, if they are proposing to preserve affordability on the site, there's already a mechanism in the comprehensive plan that should allow them to pursue that without requiring a complete change to the comprehensive plan. So next we'll move to Sarah Mariska, who is representing the nominator for this proposal, and she will give you a presentation to kind of explain everything from their perspective.
Thanks, Steve. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Mariska. I'm an attorney with Odin Feldman Pittleman, and with me here tonight are Martin Howell and Katie Bucklew with Avalon Bay. We've been looking at this site for a long time to think about how we could make something that is consistent with the surrounding development that takes advantage of the existing planning that Steve mentioned in his presentation. So Martin will talk a little bit about Avalon Bay, and turn it over to Katie to talk a little bit more about where we are, which is the very beginning of an iterative process. And we're excited to be here tonight and look forward to continuing the conversation after tonight as this hopefully moves forward. Martin, I don't know if you want to take it from there.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Stephen, for putting this together. I just wanted to do a quick introduction of myself and our company. I'm Martin Howell. I'm a Senior Vice President with Avalon Bay. I'm joined tonight with Katie Bucklew, who's the Vice President of Avalon Bay. A real quick intro on Avalon Bay. We are the owners of the Eaves Fairfax Tower building and the land underneath it. Avalon Bay is a publicly traded real estate investment trust. We are based in Arlington, Virginia. We have a national footprint across coast to coast, East Coast and West Coast. And we are one of the largest developers and owners of diverse and mixed income, mixed use apartment communities in the nation, one of the largest owners and operators. As said, we're a publicly traded company based in Arlington. Our primary business model really is to develop and build apartments and to manage them long term. And we're not builders and sellers primarily of apartments. We have approximately 306 apartment communities nationwide. 47 of those communities would be in the Mid-Atlantic area, which Katie and I help oversee. And about 8 of the Mid-Atlantic communities are located in Fairfax County. Interesting enough, the majority of the assets we own in Fairfax County, including the Eaves Tower, are what we do a very small piece of is buy communities that other developers build. In Fairfax, of our 8-ish communities we own, we have a diverse product, which is interesting. We have, on one hand, we have the Eaves Tower and some older communities out in Reston that we purchased from another group. And then we have the Avalon Mosaic, which we developed in partnership with the Edens in the Mosaic District. We built the apartments in the back of there, which was more indicative of what we do by and large as our business plan, which is building larger, newer multifamily communities. And then we also have a community that we developed in the 90s in Avalon Tysons in Tysons Corner. So you can see just by that, we have a diverse product, but we primarily are developers. We're really excited about this particular asset. We purchased Eaves Fairfax Tower in approximately 2011. And as I said, we purchased from another family development, I believe, that owned it for many, many years. Since we purchased the community, we've been constantly putting capital into the community. We've invested over $60 million in this asset over the last 13 years, including a big capital slug this last year to redo the air conditioning and heating systems in the building. In the meantime, we have this piece of property that is primarily used for surface parking of the office tower. And we're really excited to come back and work in partnership with the communities and the staff to create a kind of a mixed use development with diverse housing types. So I just wanted to make that quick introduction to Avalon and turn it over to Katie, who can talk a little bit about. Katie's a development manager that works in our very small team. It's just 3 of us that work in Arlington on the Mid-Atlantic development stuff. So Katie is knee deep into this opportunity, and she can share with you a little bit of what we're proposing.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. And thank you, Steve, for putting this together and for having us. It's exciting to be talking about a potential new development. So as Martin noted, we believe the site has a lot of unexplored potential and can really become a key piece within the neighborhood, offering a diversity of housing product. And this plan, if you'll notice, is slightly different than what Stephen showed, and it's just very illustrative of the iterative nature of development projects, particularly very early on. So since we submitted for our nomination, we've been, talking to community members, we've been talking to planning staff, and have come a ways in what the plan looks like that we think is, every iteration has improvements along the way. And so we've talked to many stakeholders and have reached out. If we have not directly connected with you yet, we very much look forward to hearing your thoughts and engaging in a robust conversation about what this can become. And I'm going to quickly highlight, and then I know there's probably questions, the kind of the key attributes of this plan and what we've been working through. So I think first and foremost, what Martin talked about, housing, what this plan offers is really a diversity of product that would include the preservation of the existing Eaves Tower, both market rate and affordable rental apartments, and market rate and affordable for sale townhomes. A secondary component is enhancements to the existing Eaves Tower that would include a structured parking garage that will be covered and will utilize the site grade to be built into the hill. So it won't be a towering structure. Another big component is pedestrian and vehicular connectivity throughout the site. So that includes sidewalks across the entire project, street parking, and interparcel connectivity. We will also do improvements to the exterior component of the site, the perimeter of the site, so that you'll have safer, wider sidewalks to go shopping in the neighborhood. At some point, hopefully getting to the BRT stop. And this plan would include dedicated right-of-way for that future BRT. And then the last big component, I'd say to the plan is dedicating over 4.5 acres of the site to urban parks and gathering spaces that really the neighborhood, our residents and the surrounding neighborhood can hopefully enjoy for years and years to come. So with that, I think, Stephen, do we turn it back over to you? And that's just what I just spoke about, so.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Next, we'll move on to community feedback. And I saw that Mr. Kurt Pendle had his hand raised.
Yeah, Stephen, I have some questions, and if Katie could put her map back up, I think that would be helpful because the questions relate to understanding A through D. I'm
Excuse me, Kurt,
Katie?
can you expand that map at all?
This is in the presentation form. Is it not large enough on your screen?
You might be able to change your view and take the people out. I think standard view, you take all the people out of the picture and just have I don't know.
That's okay, never mind.
Okay, well, my question kind of relates to how this all is. In other words, block D, what's a 2 by, you say 2 #2. What does that mean? I don't understand what that means.
So
It
it's
says
a 2/2 townhome. So it's a townhome basically, but it's a unit over a unit.
Okay, so there's two together. Okay, do you know how many stories is that? Is that 4 stories, 2 stories?
They're typically 4. It really depends on the grading of the site as to what it visually looks like. But that is in concept, one family that owns it would walk in and go down, the other family walks in and goes up.
Okay, and you said affordable. What is the definition of affordable for the townhouses and the apartments?
The county's definition for market rate affordable housing is 60% of the it's for a household that makes 60% of the average mean income for the area. And but there are different ranges of affordability that could be factored in, that could go anywhere from that 60% up to anything that's really below it could be below, if they chose, it could be below 60%. I mean 60%, but the county's definition is 60% basically. But
okay, but what does that mean in terms of actual dollars? I realize that this project isn't going to be built this year, but
You mean actual dollars for
Yeah,
the
so-
household?
Yeah, well, that doesn't matter to, I think we're talking about how much, you're talking about purchase price, okay? I mean, what's the range on the purchase price?
I
Yeah, I
don't
think-
have those
Yeah,
figures
we don't have that
readily.
information today. One thing to note on this community is we would be Avalon would be doing the master development of the whole site. We would hope to continue to own the apartment tower and then build the Avalon community, new Block A apartments. We would work when the project starts to move, community starts to move forward. We will end up partnering or working with a local home builder to finalize and design the products that they're going to propose for sale. Avalon will not be the seller of any townhouse properties, but we will work with a partner. As it stands right now, we're probably 2 years or more before we really even think about designing products for this site and pricing. So, the definition, it'd be hard to tell right now what the units would sell for, but there would be set aside for a certain number of units to sell at as the county defines to be an affordable rate, as there will be units set aside in the existing tower that will be set aside at an affordable rate as well for rent.
Is there a percentage of the units that would be in the affordable range? I mean, we're dealing with another, in our homeowner association, we're dealing with another developer, okay? And they had maybe a little further down the road, but they could tell us stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, Kurt, just to give you a little context on that for frame of reference, I mean, we are several years away, and ultimately what we work on through a zoning process would outline the number that would be affordable and at what range and at what product type. But for a point of reference, in 2024, the area median income for this area is $154,000. And then there are specific limits that are set for sale product, as well as based on family size and the product type by Fairfax County. So we're 2 years away from knowing specific figures. Like you mentioned, EYA is a lot farther ahead in their process. And some of these details that we're talking about would be refined through a zoning process.
okay, can you explain a little bit, it's hard to tell from this, but the major development is on the apartments is basically taking the green area out and putting apartments in. What do they look like? I mean, I can't tell. Is that, you mentioned underground or something, but obviously they're not all underground. So what is?
No, I mean, it's primarily, if you go back to the existing conditions, the concept is that currently where Block A is shown is primarily a surface parking lot. That it is the surface parking lot that supports the tower, the existing tower today. It's all that parking lot that is kind of up on Leesburg Pike and Pimmit. So the idea is we would take that asphalt parking lot and replace it with a combination of 5-6 story apartments built up in the hill. And then we would also include open space inside of there. And then we take the edges of the Leesburg Pike and the edges of Pimmit and create the townhouse parcels. And then we would preserve the hill in the middle of the site with more of passive open space. So the areas that we're redeveloping, the primary area of redevelopment for the apartments is that existing surface parking lot.
So one thing to note is from Leesburg Pike and Pimmit to kind of where the townhouses are on Block B, the very edge of them, you have over 60 feet of grade. So it's, you're climbing a hill basically. And so what we are able to do with the apartment building along Pimmit is utilize the building itself to serve as a lot of the retaining walls, tuck in parking, so it won't feel like a towering structure. So the component that will still at the end of the day be the largest and most prominent piece on the site is the existing tower. I don't know if that's helpful.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me, and then I don't want to monopolize it, but two things. One, right now on Pimmet, the parking is virtually every spot is parallel parked. Is that because the Eaves charges for parking and people want to not pay that fee? Is that what's going on there? And we have the same situation with which is existing, but on the other side. So
Yeah, we can look into that. We don't charge a lot for parking at Eaves. And
yeah, but you still have the whole thing filled up. People are
well, the parking is it's utilized. We're not in control of the city public right-of-way streets. So I think how the parking's managed on the public right-of-way would certainly be a county question. And we could certainly look
But I
into
think,
it.
no, I think Kurt, your points are well taken, because I think a couple of things we can do, and I know we will come and talk to your community in more detail, is to have some visuals that help visualize the grade and how the existing site would change. And then I also think we can better explain existing parking, proposed parking, how it compares to the county requirements, and then think about Pimmet and how that condition might end up in the future and how we might work with the county on that.
Okay, and I'm going to shut up now, but I am going to turn this over probably to Jane, one of the Janes. But the density issue for us is that I think we were at the medium density, right? And this would really put that into in my opinion, the super high density when you build other apartment towers. That's all. Back to Jane if she has something to add to that.
Okay, thank you. We have 4 hands raised, and I think Francine was first. Francine Tolson.
Thank you. I'm curious, Garage 1 is marked on this plat, but I assume that the similar in the middle of Block A is a second garage? It's not
That's
marked as a garage, but, okay.
Yes, that's correct. It would be for that, serving that new multifamily.
Okay. What's the capacity? One of the concerns is right now traffic is already horrific. And all of these units are going to add a huge amount of additional vehicles to this area. So what's the capacity of those 2 garages? And is that the only added parking to this plat?
From the county standpoint, we have not gotten into the parking calculations yet. If this were to go into to become a zoning exercise, if it were to advance far enough as a plan amendment, well, it does. I think the take right now is that it doesn't require a plan amendment. So if it were submitted for zoning, either because a plan amendment was required, or if it goes directly into zoning because of the county's policy for preservation of housing affordability, the parking calculations would become a part of the zoning exercise. Zoning would determine how many parking spaces would be required at a site like this, and if they're and determine if they are meeting that requirement. For the purposes of SSPA, right now, the larger discussion is kind of more of what needs to be considered if it does move further into this process, into a process that is where the review is really geared toward the decision making. So we do understand just from what we heard so far that parking is something that really needs to be considered if further study does take place for this proposal.
Garage 1 is intended to serve the high rise and take the place of the surface parking, correct?
That's correct.
And Block D townhouses will have their own parking as part of the building,
Block D and Block B,
and Block B.
self-park.
And the other garage 2 will handle parking for Block A apartments,
Correct.
but you have no estimate of the number of parking spaces in those 2 garages at this point?
We are working through all of those elements as we continue to iterate and, look at another submission. And
And
I
just to
think
be clear, yeah, and to add to that is that the intention is that we would meet Fairfax County zoning ordinance requirements. And there is flexibility based on proximity to transit as well as based on the mix of units. So that is why some of this is still conceptual, but the intention is that we would address the parking consistent with the zoning ordinance.
Something was mentioned about some changes to mass transportation on Leesburg Pike. Any further plans for that, or more details or concepts?
Right now, a lot of what has to happen with that is you have to have some sort of projects that are taking place that gives the county the position to acquire, that gives the county and the state the position to acquire additional right of way. So that's one of the things that is considered here for this case, because they want to do something different. And unless there are more projects along Leesburg Pike, they kind of come along and propose changes, some form of changes. We kind of get to a point where right now the county hasn't got to the point where they are taking properties from anyone or anything of that nature. So this kind of, there are plans for bus rapid transit that goes from Tyson's all the way down to the City of Falls Church and also to the West Falls Church Metro Station. But the timing of that hasn't been fully determined, if that makes sense.
Okay, and the plan for this plot or plat or whatever includes land that could be taken over by the county for rapid transit?
It includes a plan to dedicate land for widening of Route 7 that would accommodate bus rapid transit.
Okay, thanks. I yield the floor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next we have, looks like Wyman.
Yes, my name's Joan Wyman. I live in Idlewood Towers, and I have a couple questions. Currently, there's a swimming pool on the site at Eaves. Are you going to retain that, or is that going to be eliminated?
that's a component that will, as we further refine and start talking to our residents, understand what amenities they want. And right now you can kind of see a little blue swimming pool where we have presumed that we will relocate and replace it. It will, honestly, we do a lot of focus groups and conversations with our existing residents to make sure that what we are providing is in fact something they want. So that will continue to evolve, in the coming years as we work through this development plan.
Okay, because we have a swimming pool in the east building on the same high rise where the Eaves is. And we've, over the years, have had problems with non-residents getting into the pool. And even though it's fenced and everything like that, they sometimes still get in. So I just want to make sure if you were going to continue your pool, because I can see that as being an enticement for the children that live over there, and they think, oh, they can come up to us and swim in our pool. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. And the other one is, what about the water? This is the highest point in Fairfax County, and there are artesian wells on some of our land at certain spots. Are you going to do proper ground penetration or to find out what's going on? Because I think I've heard that on Route 7 where St. Paul's is along Route 7, there's a water issue and they can't develop because of that. So I'm wondering, are you planning to go down in there and dig down and find out what's going on down there with the water? And is it?
Yeah, I don't know about that specific issue, but when we move forward on a community, we hire all the engineers and they will do due diligence on the geotech and the environmental and the historic resources. We do the full package of analysis on the ground and on the development with the engineers. I'm sure if that is a concern, we will certainly have that on the list.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have Robin.
Hi, thank you very much. I live on the opposite side of Leesburg Pike in the Lemon Road area with the Lemon Road Civic Association. My question, I have three questions. What is the current dwelling unit per acre on this parcel? And how much are you looking to increase it by? I see, what is the current dwelling unit per acre right now?
The current build out is approximately 24 dwellings per acre. And as I showed in a previous slide, they're requesting a 1.63 FAR. And that for this site, that would basically translate to about with the number of units that they're proposing, 991 units, that would translate to about 58.38 dwelling units per acre.
So in other words, you're actually more than doubling the dwelling units per acre with this nomination, correct?
That's what the nomination proposes.
Okay, the second question has to do with the traffic. I know from VDOT information that the intersection at Leesburg Pike and Pimmett Drive is currently rated by VDOT during peak hours. It has failing grades with an E and an F. It seems to me the addition of 991 total units is only going to cause that intersection to be worse. This is one of my concerns as a person in the community who drives this route every single day. How do you propose to mitigate the addition of 991 units on an already failing intersection?
From the county standpoint, this is a nomination for this was submitted as a nomination to amend the plan amendment. So county resources have not been allocated to study transportation for this site. If this site does move forward again, whether it's with a plan amendment or if it just goes into zoning under the current housing preservation policy, that is one of the things that would be required. They would have to submit a transportation impact analysis, and then they would also have to determine what types of mitigations they would propose to do what they're proposing. And in some cases, mitigation may include a reduction in density. So that's all I can say right now.
A TIA will be done.
A TIA for this level, for this amount of density and this number of units, a TIA would have to be
okay. And then my third question is more of a comment. I'm looking at the townhouse blocks A, and you've talked about the BRT going through, but the townhomes that are right on the corner are extremely close. They look like they're in the right of way. If Leesburg Pike, if Route 7 is widened to include additional lanes from the BRT, how will that impact the proposed the nomination?
So this proposed nomination, I was going to say, Steve, we did take that into account. We're aware of the estimated right-of-way necessary to accommodate the bus rapid transit, and we have included that right-of-way dedication such that the buildings proposed closest to Leesburg Pike would not preclude the necessary dedication for the BRT.
Okay.
And I was only going to add that with these concepts that you see tonight, None of them have the county's endorsement. The county hasn't said that any of these are the right ways to do them, but I think these are just one of the ways that the nominators have submitted that they think they can make it work on the front end. But none of this really accounts for any of the engineering that we've also heard would have to come later in the project as well. So.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you very much. I'm going to yield to other questions.
Okay.
Thanks.
Next, we have Jane Martin. You're still muted, Jane.
Hear that. I'm Jane Martin. Thank you, Stephen. I live in Idlewood Station, and as with the previous person, I have concerns about traffic. The other morning, I noticed as I was walking my dogs at 7:30 that between 7:30 and 9:30, the left lane to turn left from Idlewood going west or going down towards Leesburg Pike was backed up all the way to Idlewood Station Lane consistently. Now, I'm sure the traffic moved, but it's for 2 hours in the morning. It is bumper to bumper to get through that light. So I'm looking at the county's currently allowing the use of 2.5 cars per townhouse as an indication of how many cars are now connected with each townhouse in Fairfax County. So if you take 2.5 times 139, the addition of townhouses, you're going to have 347.5 cars. And then if you add, well, how many apartment houses are you going to add? 800 and some to the existing?
I think the proposal is for I think it was 437 additional.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, I think it was 437.
Jane, a major problem too, I just noticed it, is their traffic is.
Wait a minute.
Their traffic is scheduled to dump out in the EYA and come out on an Idlewood Road. Take a look at that, okay?
Yeah. Well, that's one of my questions when I get there. But so far, we've got close to 1,000 cars. You know, it's around 800.
Yeah.
And everybody sometimes has more than one car in an apartment house. So my concern is that it's almost bumper to bumper on Idlewood Road. As a matter of fact, when we did the research, when EYA was coming in, VDOT told us that there were 30,000 cars that go up and down Idlewood Road every day. Now, that's from EYA in the county. So I'm just telling you, people are going to be very concerned about the inability to move their cars once they get in them. And then my next question had to do with what Kurt said. Where is the entrance and exit for this new Eaves? Is it still that one on Idle Road?
Yeah, the plan is right now is showing.
Not Idle Road, Pimmet. Is it only one?
Yeah, the plan's showing 2 entrances on Pimmet. The one existing entrance and then the other one to service parcel D. And the primary access would go in and out of those 2 entrances on Pimmet.
So it'll be from 1 to 2. Okay.
Yeah, but it shows on your plan that from block B, it goes straight through, or I assume that's EYA, and then comes down and exits on Idlewood Road.
Yeah.
So that would add a tremendous. Jane's already concerned about what EYA is adding. You guys would just put it over the top. They would be backed up to the Beltway.
So I think as maybe Stephen noted and Sarah, traffic is obviously a big concern in this area and something that, one, we have to study further. We also, have to work with the community, understand the concerns, understand the traffic patterns, and figure out where all the cars would potentially be going. So it's not anything I think we can address today, except say we hear your concerns and we know that that's a big component of any plan going forward.
Right. The next question is really, well, it's close to my heart, but it's not very practical. Right now, there's a whole herd of deer that live back there. There are foxes and there are other animals, and I think I know the answer to this, but I don't want to hear it. Does the county do anything to corral them or take them or move them, or do they just wait till they die on the streets?
Well,
Because we've seen lots of dead deer around here.
one of the components of the environmental component of the comprehensive plan does speak to natural habitats for wildlife and the need to be respectful of those areas. So again, if this moves forward, that's something, the concern that you laid out is something else that we will also make sure that the planning commission and board of supervisors are aware of that concern for that habitat and those animals there. So
Thank you. Thank you.
you're welcome. Next, it looks like we have Sonia Brehe.
Yeah, hi, thank you so much. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate this nomination, that they're proposing some infill development on an existing site, preserving existing affordable homes and adding more homes, different housing types at different price points. I think that's really important because we sort of face this affordability crisis and not having enough homes that drive up the cost, and so many people are not able to sort of live closer in these great locations in our county. I live in Falls Church. I travel this corridor a lot. I mean, this is between Falls Church and Tyson's, and I think, and I understand the concerns around traffic, but I also think the more, the best way to sort of provide opportunities for people to live in a car-free or car light. I don't know that we could go car-free entirely here. Perhaps some could. I know there was conversation about how some people have more cars. Well, some people have less cars. And I think it's important to consider how not everybody travels the same way. And this is an area that does have really good transit. I understand that the bus rapid transit is in the works, but it's sort of a long ways out. But right now we have the 28A. It comes every 12 minutes. It's a great, well-used bus line. And there are others that connect to the McLean Metro. So the 28A goes into Tyson's or back to West Falls Church. So this is a great opportunity to provide more homes close to those transit options. I like that, as I'm looking at the screen, the inter-parcel connectivity. I think that's really helpful in creating a good neighborhood that's walkable. I like what I'm hearing about improvements to walking and biking in that area. I think if anything, it would be great if we could get some of those bike ped improvements both on site, but also connecting to the shopping centers and nearby amenities and to the transit stops. So that way, folks aren't always forced to get in the car and have to drive to go shopping, that it's actually easy and accessible to sort of walk to go to the store and get around. So I know, there's a lot, and I appreciate folks, concerns and what I'm hearing. But I think that this is a nomination that's certainly worth moving forward so that we can sort of do a deeper dive into sort of figuring out some of these details and making sure it works for the community and, and that we get it right. But I just think this is a great opportunity. So I wanted to share that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Barbara LaMonica. You can unmute, please.
Yes, one of my concerns was transportation, and I know we've been talking a lot about that. And then also, with that much of an increase in the population, do you also look at Fairfax County services being increased, such as the number of EMS, fire, police, emergency services, and things like that? Does that go into this planning?
Any of these types of projects, we have to look at the ability to or the capacity of existing public facilities, and if there are existing recommendations or if there need to be changed recommendations for the level of services that are provided. That goes for public facilities such as schools, parks, like you were saying, police service, EMT service, fire service, all those things are considered to be public facilities that are under constant review by the county for having adequate capacity under current conditions. And then at this level of change, all those things have to be looked at again. That's public facilities is a major component of the comprehensive plan. So we don't just look at the area plan to kind of see what could happen here and what the impacts of what would happen here as if this moves forward. We have to look at the county-wide policies and the area-wide plans as well. So
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
you're welcome. And that was also, I think there was a question in the chat about schools, that schools review, the review for impacts to schools and the current adequacy of schools. That also is part of that public facilities review. But again, it doesn't happen at this point. Right now, the major question is, the major question that the Planning Commission and the board are seeking help to answer is, should these projects move forward into that process where those if these projects should move forward, what are the things that are important to consider? So we just want to give, I guess the short answer for that is, right now schools hasn't looked at this, but if it does go further into a process that gets it along further in the development process, then all those things are something that the county is going to have to consider. So all right, thanks, Barbara. Next we have Eileen Bogdanoff.
Bogdanoff, very good, thank you. I
You're
live
welcome.
in Idlewood Towers, and Block D, where you're talking about townhouses, abuts our property. You would leave very little woods in between us and your property. In fact, those woods would only be our woods. Now, if I'm right, I'm counting up the little rectangles for these townhouses, and there seem to be 32 of them, and each unit is going to have 2 families in it. So we're now at 32 times, I'm sorry, it was 38 units. 32 times 2 is 76 families. And at 2 cars per family, that's a lot of cars. We already know that when the townhouses were built across the street on Los Pueblos, those people don't have enough parking. They're parking on the street, and now they're attempting to park in our parking lots, which are flat surface lots. Our parking lots do not have any sort of gates or anything on them. So unless we hire somebody to walk around constantly and chase people out, we know that when you build a unit and there's going to be 2 families in it, they're going to have 4 cars. Because contrary to what that lady just said, you really can't walk to shopping from here. You can only get to the small shopping center where we've just lost Whole Foods. You can walk the half mile down to Giant and walk back? I don't think so. So those apartments on Block D, where do you think those people are going to park? You say that each unit is going to have parking. How many spaces for each unit for parking?
Yeah, I mean, again, we will program that when the townhouse developers come to the table and when we work through the detailed plan. Typically, a townhouse unit would be provided 1 to 2 parking spaces on site underneath their building per unit. So
but you're having 2 families in each unit.
No, we're having 1 family in 1 unit, and there's 2 stacked homes, one on top of each other. So that would be 2 families, 2 units, and theoretically, the number of cars per unit would be 2 to 4. I mean, 1 to 2 per home.
Exactly, 1 to 2 per home.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. We know this already. We know this from the other ones. And I did a little math because I want to answer that one lady that was talking when you said, about how much these are going to cost. These townhouses are going to cost 60% of the median income, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to be over $900,000 to $1 million each. This is not low cost or medium cost housing. The only medium cost housing you're going to have is your original building. So you're not doing anything to help us with our problem of providing more housing for middle income families. I'm done.
Thank you, Eileen. Next, we have David Harvey.
Good evening. I just wanted to say, even though I think it's early and definitely needs a little bit of a, a little bit more development on the program, I do support the county building housing. I'm a millennial. I have a master's degree. I live in this area. I grew up in this area, and it's very challenging for me and my friends to afford to live here right now. There are a lot of folks who are not as fortunate as me, and so I do appreciate the county as well as the developer trying to build more housing. I understand there are some concerns about parking and some concerns about transportation. We do live in one of the largest metropolitan areas of the country. Those concerns, with or without this, will still exist. If of course the developer and the county work on addressing some of those, great. But folks and friends of mine, we have some more base concerns about being able to afford to live in Fairfax and start families here and be able to call this place home in the future, as we just have an incredibly expensive housing market. So those are my comments. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, David. Next, we have Hassan Dar.
Yeah, I'm 15. I've lived here my entire life. And, I'm really concerned for my future in this region, especially with how the housing prices are looking here. And I really think these new housing developments are good ideas, especially this one since it takes place on infill development. But I really, really want the county to look into more transit options and cycling and pedestrian access here, such as like wider sidewalks and protected bike lanes. The county should look into developing another like Fairfax connector route here because from my understanding, there isn't one here other than a future BRT planned. And again, pedestrian safety in this area is genuinely horrible. And if you want to reduce the impact of traffic, like a lot of residents here have already stated, then the county should invest in some safer and more accessible infrastructure that will allow for more options of transportation other than driving. That's all I have.
All right. Thanks, Hassan. That is something that we will definitely make a note of for consideration by the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors also. And I think we had a question from Mustafa. I was trying to see if there were any questions that hadn't been fully answered. And his question was, what will be the pedestrian and cycling improvements in the area? The Leesburg Pike enhanced public transportation corridor recommendations are for a shared use path, and I don't have the exact widths of the county standards for shared use paths, but in order to have it in order to have a shared use path alongside Route 7, I think what is included in the dedication that the nominators for this site are proposing would not only be adequate to widen Route 7 for bus rapid transit, but that that right of way would also be adequate to install those shared use paths. And I think I want to say the width dimensions for shared use paths is either 10 feet wide or 12 feet wide, but it provides enough space for, it should provide enough space for two-way travel of both cyclists and pedestrians, if that helps.
Steve, we would be contemplating a 10-foot shared use path along Leesburg Pike, which is consistent with what's going to be proposed on the EYA site as well.
Okay, thank you. So next we have Jane Fitzgibbons.
Yes, thank you. I just want to go back to the map and the gray area below the proposed expansion. Yes, right here. So I think Kurt alluded to the fact we were thinking that that was the EYA development.
Mm-hmm.
And then next to it is the church, right?
Right.
Okay, so the white lines that go around Block B, North Townhouses, is that a sidewalk or is that a road?
They would have both.
But I mean, it looks as though that flows into the EY. You see where the white and the gray kind of cross that line?
Yes, that there was a request by some stakeholders that we investigate and look at how we can do an interparcel connection, which is frankly quite challenging on this site, given the various grade changes. But we, through several exercises and iterations, have found a option for this request.
What is it? What does that mean? Can you drive from
yes, so
into
yeah.
EYA?
A vehicle would be able to drive through. It would be quite windy and slow.
But then they would be able to come out on Idlewood Road.
The flip side of that would be that people on EYA, if they wanted to get to the north of here, could also drive through their site. So it wouldn't just be a one-way deal. It would be a two-way.
No, but if the people who live at Eaves don't want to go out Pimmet Drive, you're suggesting, and that I guess Eaves is agreeing with this, that they could drive into Eaves property and come out on Idlewood Road, which is not something that has been shared with the community.
This is something that hadn't been shared with the county either. But again, when they do a transportation impacts analysis and you kind of look at these alternate routes that take people off, that could help take people off of Leesburg Pike and kind of provide an intermediate way for people to go north from the south or south from the north, that would be something that would be factored into the transportation impacts analysis. And it's something that hasn't been approved, but it's something that would have to be reviewed. So if it is determined to worsen traffic, it's something that probably wouldn't be supported by the county or by VDOT. But if it's something that could alleviate traffic going in both ways, then
well, it certainly wouldn't alleviate traffic. It's basically adding some of the additional vehicles at Eaves coming through EYA onto Idlewood Road, when most of the work that we've done, I'm from Idlewood Station with EYA, was to try and mitigate the impact of their residents. And now you're saying that people from Eaves can come out this way too.
Not only that, but people from EYA, it's short to go out to Idlewood Station Lane. For them to go, which is the point that Stephen made, they'd have a ton of moving around and curves and turns to get out on Pimmet. And then they'd still have to go down to the corner. So I can't see anybody much from EYA, which is the church development, actually exiting to go through the Eaves development.
And I think I think a lot of that could be looked again. A lot of that would be looked at with a transportation impacts analysis, but it's something that the county really has no opinion on yet because we don't have the data for it. So,
Stephen,
I'll just add to that though, and Matt, maybe you wanted to jump in because I was going to give a little bit more context, but I don't know, Matt, if you wanted to speak.
I was just going to say, I think this is, Sarah, from your end, still up in the air because the proposal you had submitted last month, the illustrations did not have
did
this
not show this.
connection. So I think it's still being worked out, but yeah, go ahead.
No, Jane, we appreciate the comment and we appreciate everyone's comments about both traffic and parking. Part of why we are here tonight is to get this feedback so that we can go back, think about the comments and understand the totality of feedback that we've gotten and try and continue to iterate as to what makes sense from both the county standpoint, as well as the community standpoint, as well as the analysis that we would do as part of any zoning application. We did specifically, we were asked by Fairfax County Department of Transportation to strongly consider an interparcel connection. That's also been asked of EYA's development. So we, in looking at this, worked to understand if and where that could be accommodated. But ultimately, we will be doing a transportation impact analysis. Gaurav Slade will be part of our team. They would do traffic counts and analysis, and we would share that information as we continue to refine exactly what our proposal is and thinking about those impacts. So we appreciate the feedback that we're getting tonight, and we would continue to have that conversation about exactly what the right balance is as we move forward. We did add this interparcel connection at the request of the county, as EYA was also asked to do as part of their zoning. But again, refining that would be done through a zoning process.
So next we have Wyman.
Yes, thank you. I had another question that came up as we were talking about parking and the traffic. Out on Pimmit Drive, there are 2 bicycle stations or stands. There's one up at Brittany Park, and we weren't notified of it. It just showed up one day and they built it there. There's one down by the entrance, the current entrance to the Eaves. Is that something that you're going to keep, or are you going to work with the bicycle company to get rid of it? I just think with all this heavy traffic coming up Pimmit, it could be a problem. Now, is this something the county works with? How do they sort of show up?
Is this like one of the bike share stands that you're?
Yeah, I guess that's what you call it. I call it the bike station. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure how it showed up, but we'll definitely speak with our counterparts at FCDOT. I think a lot of times they try to put those in places where they would get if it is a county sanctioned or county supplied station, they're usually put in place where they think they get good use. So I'll definitely throw that out to
there's 2 of them on Pimmit Drive, one at the top here at Brittany and down by you. And I just think with the traffic, it's, well.
Steve, can I interject? This is Matt Savage from Supervisor Palchik's office. And I also live in Falls Hill, which is closer to the next project we'll be talking about. But yeah, those 2 capital bike share stations have seen pretty good ridership. I've used them myself, and with the new bike lanes that are relatively new within probably the last 5 years on Pimmit Drive, they were identified in the long-term the bike goals that the county made. But those are one of the ways that we reduce our reliance on cars on Pimmit Drive is people do use them to then go bike to take the bus to go to work.
probably even the metro also, if possible. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I'd be happy to follow up. I can put my info in the chat and share information about their ridership because they are pretty heavily utilized.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's see. I don't see any more hands raised. I'm trying to see if there were any questions in the chat that haven't been answered either through our discussion of parallel subjects. It looks like most of what's in the chat has been answered through the other questions we've had, and I just want to thank everyone for
Stephen, could I interrupt you for a minute? I raised my hand, but it's not showing up.
Okay, sorry.
No worries. My name is Bill Baranowski. I live at Idlewood Station, and I wanted to, if just for a moment, we've covered a lot of the issues that I had in mind, but I was specifically around the garage number 1. I was wondering if somebody could speak to in a little more detail about the size, the dimensions of what you anticipate for that garage. As I understand, it's supposed to accommodate the existing Towers building, and I know you said it was supposed to be built into the slope of the land, but I was wondering if somebody had a bit more detail on that.
Yeah, we don't have the exact sizes, but it is a multi-level garage that on the western side would be screened, and on the eastern side it would be built into the hill, and that hill is very steep. So
I want to say when I looked at it briefly, it is the townhouses that sit right behind us. You're really only seeing the top maybe 1.5 levels of the garage.
Okay, and how many units are you anticipating it would accommodate in the towers? All of them?
All 415.
Okay. So you're thinking that may be like 3 stories or 4 stories max?
I think it may end up, it depends on how the dimensions work out and how many parking spaces and how efficient we can get it. I'd say we're still very early in the design, but it's probably around 5 or 6 stories.
Oh my God.
And again, you're like the way the grade and the hill, it doesn't even come out of the ground until probably you would hit a 6th story.
Okay, but you were anticipating it would have approximately 500 spaces in there.
Yeah, I think what's very important to understand too is you do have that entire tree buffer, that canopy will still be there, and it is a distance from the closest townhome to the edge of the garage is I think something around 460 feet. So you're a football field and a quarter distance away.
Right. I'm also thinking about the traffic going into that primary one new entrance in and out of Pimmit. You've got close to 500 cars, I would expect, going in and out of that one entrance.
And again, there's 2 routes. So there's 2 entrances right there on Pimmit that they could.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So we thank everyone for your questions, and we're going to move on to our next nomination, which is the Beyer-Gordon Rd Triangle nomination, CPN 2025 Roman numeral I-PR-046, or PR-46 for short. And this nomination is for a 2.4-acre site at the intersection of Shreve Road and Route 7 at the county shared boundary with the city of Falls Church. The subject site is currently developed with low-rise retail, a restaurant, veterinary service, industrial flex uses, and vehicular sales and service uses. The adopted plan recommends the site for mixed uses at the baseline, and development is neighborhood serving commercial uses up to 0.25 FAR with substantial screening to minimize any adverse visual or noise impacts to adjacent residential uses to the north of Shreve Road. The nomination is requesting consideration of a plan option for mixed-use redevelopment at a minimum intensity of 3.0 FAR that would predominantly consist of multifamily residential uses with the ground floor spaces activated. Redevelopment under this option would produce at least 314,000 square feet of mid-rise residential mixed-use redevelopment on the county's portion of this site. And it would also be based on a plan amendment that would necessitate collaboration with both the nominator and the City of Falls Church. Initial screening for PR-46 has identified that the following planning considerations for this nomination. The nomination provides an opportunity to consider residential densities in an area served by existing and planned transportation infrastructure, which includes the West Falls Church Transit Station, the WOND Trail, as well as future multimodal improvements for Route 7. Therefore, adequate right-of-way should be dedicated to support any future needs that support BRT service on Route 7. Additionally, the development will need to establish appropriate transitions and compatible relationships with surrounding uses, including lower density residential uses to the west of Shreve Road. And next, any redevelopment should provide adequate amounts of publicly accessible park space to support the future increase of residents. And lastly, the site's proximity to the Leesburg Pike may also necessitate mitigation of the potential for traffic generated noises to impact residents on site. So with that, we'll hand it over to the nominator for their presentation. I believe we have Andrew Painter here with us tonight.
Yes, thank you very much, Stephen. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Painter. I'm a zoning attorney at the law firm of Walsh Colucci. We are working with the Beyer family on this nomination. This is a different kind of nomination than the one that we just saw. We do not have a builder ready to go. We don't even have really a plan that is really well developed at this point in time. I would just say that over the last 5 years, the Beyer family has considered the future of these properties and the potential for long-term redevelopment in light of their proximity to Metro Rail, recent developments in the vicinity of the property, and sort of changing planning precepts, a little bit of which we got into with the last nomination. I think our goal with this nomination is pretty broad. It's really to get the county to start the discussion with the community and with these property owners that are adjacent to the Beyer family and the City of Falls Church about re-examining the planning for this portion of the county, this portion of the Gordon Road Triangle. Nothing is imminent because, as I'll discuss, there are many things that really do need to happen in order for redevelopment to occur, kind of like chess pieces moving around. We can go to the next slide, Stephen, please. So these properties are the ones that are highlighted in red. They are 9 parcels. They comprise approximately 2.4 acres located in the southwest quadrant of Leesburg Pike and Route 7, West Broad Street, and Shreve Road. They are, again, the Beyer parcels, and the Beyer family has owned these parcels in the county as well as several in the city for decades. They operate 2 automotive dealerships on the site. There is the restaurant, Lazy Mike's. If you haven't been there, it's quite good. There are other retail uses as well. And then next to Lazy Mike's is the animal hospital that is also a part of this. The Beyers do not own that. That's owned by a separate entity that has joined in this nomination. But what is outlined here is the Gordon Road Triangle, outlined in white dashed, and it's a 22-acre triangle that is formed by Route 7, Shreve Road, and to the south, the Washington Old Dominion Trail. This is an interesting triangle. It is straddled, or it straddles the city-county boundary, which is shown in yellow here. About 73%, or a little over 16 acres of the triangle, is in the city. About 27%, or a little, close to 6 acres, is in the county. Much of the triangle is in close proximity to the Metro Rail station within the half mile of the West Falls Church Metro station. And if you've been there, you know that most of these parcels are, older, first generation, low density industrial, institutional, commercial, automotive uses. And that includes the city's property yard, which was, for the most part, but not all, brought into the city following a boundary adjustment between the city and the county. Many of you all might remember that a while ago, we all got our water from the Falls Church City government. In 2014, the city sold its water system to Fairfax Water. And as a part of that sale, they adjust the boundaries of the city to include a portion of the city's property yard. And you can sort of see that little, sort of jug handle there, if you will, on the left-hand side. But that also included the 39-acre George Mason High School, Mary Ellen Henderson Middle School site. And as a stipulation of that, approximately or no more than about 9.5 acres could be used for economic development, which the city, of course, then replanned and rezoned. And now you have the West Falls project that's coming out of the ground catacorner to this site. We can go to the next slide. And these are some slides that show the Gordon Road Triangle on the upper left-hand side. This is looking northeast across the site. You can see the large parking lot. You can see where the school buses are parked. That's the city's property yard. And then, of course, the parking lot is where the new vehicle inventory is for the Beyer dealerships. You can see the McDonald's right at the light. You can see the Falls Plaza, the Birch and Broad Shopping Center up there as well. On the upper right-hand side, you can see Lazy Mike's and the Animal Hospital. So that's right at the intersection of Shreve and Route 7. And in the lower two, you can see the new vehicle inventory for the dealerships, largely as you drive up Shreve Road. And we can go to the next slide. So the current comprehensive plan, as Stephen mentioned, really recommends retention of what you see out there today. That is commercial industrial uses at a 0.25 FAR in a manner that is compatible with the nearby stable residential neighborhoods. If you look at the comprehensive plan base map, it's planned for mixed use. And as Stephen mentioned with the prior nomination, Route 7 or Leesburg Pike is planned as an enhanced public transportation corridor, which has recommendations for shared use paths, as well as maybe potentially alternative transit options like a bus rapid transit system, which would run between Alexandria, the Nova campus there, and Tyson's Corner. We can go to the next slide. The next slide is intended to be sort of a crossover between the comprehensive plan map as well as just some things I thought that were interesting that I wanted to put on here. So you can see the nomination property and that it's planned for mixed use. You can see the McDonald's site where the word mixed is and mixed use. You can see the office buildings beyond that. You can see the West Falls project. And as I mentioned, when that was brought into the city replanned and entitled that for high density development in order to pay for the bonds on the high school site that's been constructed. So West Falls has been planned at a 4.0 FAR. And then you can see the Falls Plaza Shopping Center right across the street as well, which back in 2023, Federal Realty Investment Trust repositioned as Birch and Broad. And you can see everything to the south of the property is similarly planned or has industrial uses on it. And then you can see the established residential communities, both townhomes and single-family detached, heading westbound along Shreve Road. And of course, the W&OD trail where it says public parks to the south. We can go to the next slide. I like this image. This is West Broad Street, looking east from the intersection at Shreve Road and Haycock Road. You can see on the right-hand side of the screen, there's construction where it says speed checked by radar. If there's actually construction, that's the Don Beyer Volvo building when it was under construction. On the left-hand side, you can see the Birch and Broad or Falls Plaza Shopping Center, which is off screen, but you can see that slow down school zone sign right there. And of course, this is before the City of Falls Church worked with VDOT to create, the Acorn Street lights and the brick sidewalks and burying all the power lines. But I just like showing this image. We can go to the next slide. So this area has seen a lot of changes over the time. If you live in the vicinity of the property, you certainly know that. Obviously, in 1986, you have the opening of the West Falls Church Metro Station. In the late 1980s, you have the completion of those pedestrian streetscape enhancements on Route 7 in the city. And not a lot happened, between the late 1980s and I'd say the sort of the mid 2000s. You did have some development near the WMATA station with the Villages and Pavilions development, but not much happened until the closure of Sam's Farm and the redevelopment of that in the 2015 timeframe with the construction of the Chestnut Place townhomes. And also, as I mentioned, in 2014, that voluntary boundary adjustment between the city and the county, which brought in some of the county land into the city. You have in 2021 the repositioning of Falls Plaza as Birch and Broad, and in 2023 a major change on the county side, at least, came with the approval of the Fairfax County Comprehensive Plan Amendment and the zoning entitlements that permitted the redevelopment of the Metro Rail Station site as well as the Virginia Tech site. And if you drive by there today, especially with the Virginia Tech site, you can see the redevelopment coming out of the ground. And then in 2025, the West Falls redevelopment of the former George Mason High School site will be open. We talked briefly in the prior nomination about the potential for bus rapid transit between Alexandria and Tysons. And then taking a broader step back, there has been a change in the way that the county considers its Metro Rail stations. When a lot of these stations were opened up back in the 1980s, they were really considered to be commuter stations. That mentality has changed from a planning perspective nationwide, but including in Fairfax County, where they're now seeking to do mixed-use redevelopment to have people be able to walk, in proximity to transit. We can go to the next slide. These are just some of the photos, sort of showing the change. You can see the West Falls Church Metro Station was under construction in the upper left-hand corner. Next to that is Chestnut Place Apartments. And you can see the new West Falls project on the upper right-hand. I really like the one that's in the lower right-hand side or lower left-hand side of the screen. That was my first image that I ever had coming through the City of Falls Church when the streetscape improvements have been constructed. And on the right-hand side, you can see the new Virginia Tech HIT headquarters building in the lower right-hand side. We can go to the next slide. As I mentioned, there's the city's property yard. It's 3 different bays. It has the homeless shelter, storage, recycling. Some of this is in the city. Some of it is in the county. But the city has about 5.5 acres in the Gordon Road Triangle. And there was a report that was issued in May of 2024 relating to the future redevelopment of this to solve the property yard needs for the city long term. And that study basically said, let's not assume any public-private partnerships. Let's assume that it's just going to be a straight redevelopment of the site by ourselves. And that was presented to City Council, which gave direction to city staff to go back and look for opportunities for public-private partnerships. We can go to the next slide. And then this was also hinted at just a little bit, I think, with the prior nomination. But Shreve Road today, there are a lot of significant pedestrian and bicycle safety issues. There is a $6.9 million pedestrian safety project that would include a crosswalk near the intersection of Shreve and Gordon Road, benches near the W&OD Trail, and stormwater management and drainage. This is going to be a county-led project with regional revenue funding from the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. Hopefully, construction will start on that in the fall of 2026 and finish in the spring of 2027. We can go to the next slide. And then on the city side of the ledger, to talk about some of the changes, this is just a list of some of the planning efforts that the city has undertaken for its Gordon Road Triangle section. I think the most important of this is the 2020 West End Small Area Plan, which contemplates redevelopment of the triangle with a mixture of uses and establishing a new street grid. The small area plan recommends a minimum of 3.0 FAR as a way to support and sustain mixed-use buildings in Class A commercial space. We can go to the next slide. And then this is another image sort of showing where the star is. That's the nomination property, the proximity to the things that have been going on in relation to sort of these city planning and county planning precepts and changes. Next slide, please. And then there's the ULI tab. This is the Urban Land Institute. They had a technical assistance panel, 2-day, project that occurred in late January of this year to evaluate the land uses within the Gordon Road Triangle and come up with policy recommendations for future land uses. Fairfax County transportation staff was there, planning staff was there, Supervisor Palchik was there as well, and maybe some of you on this call. The city and the county have used the recommendations from events like this to help inform what might occur in the comprehensive plan. It's been used in Westfields out in Western Fairfax County, and the city has used these TAP recommendations when it's evaluated changes to its comprehensive plan as well. So that TAP occurred. There were some recommendations that came out of it, and what you see on your screen is one of the drawings that came out of that recommendation. But it basically said, look, said implement the street grid that the city has assumed should go here, provide safe crossings of Route 7, create a new city public safety or service center, provide affordable housing, additional green space in an area that today is really just industrial, provide the Shreve Road improvements that are contemplated, have a good, strong connection to the Washington Old Dominion Trail to get trail users off and have them be able to access the new development that's occurring in the vicinity of the property, and then look for public-private partnerships as a way to kickstart redevelopment and investment in this area. We can go to the next slide. So all of this together, when you step back and you talk about sort of the changing approach for how we're looking at planning, at least to us, it presents a very unique opportunity for the city and the county to jointly come together and re-examine the planning recommendations, encourage reinvestment, and help this to evolve into a much more pedestrian-focused mixed-use community. We have to, when we do a site-specific plan amendment nomination, provide something, right, to consider and to have staff consider. We picked a 3.0 FAR because it was a step down in density to what is catacorner to us that the city has planned. But what is shown on your screen, we have to meet these filing requirements. So we prepared a development diagram. This is entirely conceptual. What we're proposing in this diagram would be one potential iteration. Again, we don't have a developer lined up or anything like that, but it would basically be multifamily development with ground floor retail, nice streetscapes, that sort of thing. But it could take any form, almost any form. Different building forms. You could have, divide the triangle into different sort of functional development blocks. You could integrate it with the city's property yard. And one thing I will say too, is I mentioned this at the beginning, the Beyer family is the largest private property owner in the triangle. The city of Falls Church is the largest public sector, owner of property. There has to be, changes, chess pieces. I mean, there are existing operational dealerships. There are other types of, collision repair things, companies that are there. Things have to move around in order for any redevelopment to occur. So this is a very long-term endeavor, but we think that the planning really should start now. If we can go to the next slide. Some of the other things too that we would suggest that the county consider would be encouraging a unified development approach, because for too long, the city and the county have not gotten together and seen eye to eye as far as planning goes. I think that's changing a little bit now. But we would have, we would request that the city planning staff and the county planning staff kind of work together as it pertains to the redevelopment of the triangle and the city's property yard. We would request that there be safe pedestrian connections on the south side of Shreve Road and Route 7 and the W&OD Trail. We would request that there be consideration for improving Shreve Road between Route 7 and the W&OD Trail and Gordon Road, and really changing that from a curbless rural shoulder and ditch section to a more urban curb section. We would request adding the parallel street grid that the city contemplates into the county's planning documents. And lastly, we would ask for the continuation, the expansion of the existing auto uses while there's this sort of transition period, because you can't just like wish it all away, right? You've got to have time to have these, or these properties sort of redevelop over time. The last thing I will say, we can go to the last slide. Any community outreach must involve the adjacent landowners. So that's Falls Place, that's Falls Hill, Chestnut Street, it's city residents, it's county residents on the north side of Route 7. Again, this is the start of a planning process, but we do think it hopes, that this would advance a number of county goals and objectives. Maybe there could be a task force established, but we want to be able to capitalize on the tremendous public investment that we have made as taxpayers in the funding of Metro Rail, and also concentrating new residents in a transit-rich location to enhance new investment and create a much safer, walkable, transit-oriented, vibrant community. So with that, I'm going to pause. Happy to answer any questions, and thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Looks like we have Sonia Brehe who would like to speak first.
Sure, thank you. I just have to say I was very pleased to see this nomination. The Gordon Road Triangle is one of these areas in West Falls Church where there's just so much happening and you wonder it seems lagging. So I think, with everything that's going on at West Falls Church, at the metro station and its proximity sort of just across Route 7, this is a great location for mixed use residential because would offer more homes close to the metro station and all those area amenities that are going up there. We've already discussed the planned bus rapid transit that's going down Route 7 and even the existing frequent buses that are hugely successful that run along 7. So this is a very transit rich area. And it's just the way to give people more options to moving around the area and not always having to drive. There are already transportation improvements underway at the intersection of Shreve and Route 7 with all the development that's happening there. So that's going to be improved. I think we've talked about the trail that's coming in along Route 7. And even with the WNOD, this is an opportunity to really open that up and provide better connection for people who are walking, biking in the area to connect to Metro, to connect to the shopping centers and things like that. This is a very walkable, can be even more walkable area if we can just improve this area. And it's an opportunity to be more collaborative with the city's efforts. We heard about, this sort of jurisdictional property issue where there's a lot of different sort of pieces to this. But really, trying to get Fairfax County's portion right so that we're sort of set up to work with the city so that we can really create a more cohesive neighborhood in this area with that street grid and park spaces that really sort of is just an awesome part of West Falls Church. I am just, excited to see what opportunities there are here and to see some movement in this area. I love riding my bike. I love riding the WNOD. Right now, that whole section is sort of cut off from the trail. And so improving that and just being able to sort of get off the trail and go to places, I just think will be so fantastic. And I also wanted to point out, I think, with regards to the West Falls Church Metro Station redevelopment, as part of that, there was an active transportation study and a bunch of recommendations came out of that that both talk about Shreve and Route 7 in this area, but also, considering the prior nomination that we were talking about, going up Route 7 and where it crosses Interstate 66, there are recommendations that come out of that study. So I think it would be really important to look at those recommendations and make sure they're sort of baked into any of these proposals when they move forward. Because I do think there's a lot of good stuff that is already sort of planned for, and I think this is an opportunity to move that forward. And so I just want to express my support for this nomination moving forward. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Next we have Betty.
Hi, I put most of my questions in the chat and some of them have been already responded to, but when the slideshow for this nomination is going to be on Plus, I say, is that correct? How do you find it?
That's correct. A link, you can follow the link. Let me make sure the link is working first, but yes, you can follow the citizens access link here, and then maybe I can demonstrate it here. This is citizens access for Plus. And if you go to record info here and then down to attachments, different attachments will populate here. So
We
just
can't, Stephen, I'm sorry, can't see it.
I'm sorry. Let's see. Let me share a different screen. Okay. So can you see the website for Plus?
Steve, we can see your presentation. But in any event, we could ask Andrew Painter for a copy.
Okay, yeah, there we go.
Here you go. So tomorrow it will be added to Plus. Let me go back and show you what it looks like. When you first click the link, this is what you'll see. And then you can go down to record info and attachments, and that's how you get the attachments to populate. And they should show up in it's not showing up yet, but it worked the last time. When you click on attachments, all the attachments will populate, and it's sometime by mid-afternoon tomorrow. This should be posted, but it'll also be posted on the SSPA. There'll also be a link to it on the SSPA website, and you'll also be able to find a link to this video. So for that, you would go to SSPA, and then you would come down to community meeting schedule. And just as you see the meeting videos and presentations from all the other meetings that have taken place, the presentation and the video for tonight will also be provided here under Providence Leesburg Pike.
Okay.
In place of where you see the Zoom link.
So I think the slides already include a figure that shows the lots that would be in both the city and county, that not just the Gordon Road Triangle, but also the lots in the city. Is that correct?
Correct. And it's kind of odd because some of the lots are split between the city and the county. So you may have 75% of one site of one lot that's in the city, and then the other 25% is in the county. So
okay. And then this is going to include Lazy's Mike's, so that the whole shared use trail along Shreve Road between Route 7 and the Washington Old Dominion trails. There's going to be part of this that'll be completely feasible to have that consistent with the Lazy's Mike's thing, so that because buyer owns it. So right now there's like a really steep thing between Lazy Mike's parking lot and the Shreve Road, which seems to be a problem for the Shreve Road Trail. But so this is going to be fully consistent with that.
This consolidated site, the information that has been submitted by the nominators, Andrew and his team, it contemplates the entire site being a part of that development.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, so this is going to be like fully consistent with the shared use trail between WNOD and Route 7, right?
It should be. That would be one of the recommendations of a comprehensive plan study to accommodate what is needed for those improvements, not just on Route 7, but also on Shreve Road, as Andrew indicated.
Okay. So the auto dealership is going to be there in the interim because this is a long-term project. Is the concept that at the end of the day, the auto dealership will not be there anymore with all the parking for the cars that are, for sale? And also, the second question is the concept that at the end of the day, the city's property yard will no longer be there as a property yard. It will be replaced by multifamily residential park buildings, or is the city's property yard still going to have, some of the facilities it has now on this property?
Stephen, I'm happy to answer that if you like.
Thank you, Andrew.
So just to let you know, so and others on the call may know better than me, but the Shreve Road Trail project, that's moving forward no matter what. Like it's moving. Like that train is leaving. It's left the barn, and the design for that I think is under review right now. I think that the county is going to start doing the eminent domain for that, the condemnation for those trail sections in the next like couple of months. Like it's on its way. So no matter what happens with this nomination or any redevelopment here, those improvements will hopefully be there no matter what. As far as the dealerships go, when I mentioned the two different chess pieces, the dealerships, they've been there since the 70s. And the way that we buy cars now is totally different, than it used to be. It's if you look at the new Volvo dealership, it's the dealership that's right on Route 7 that was constructed a couple of years ago. That's an urban showroom, right? It has about 4 different cars in it at any given time. You do need to have space for vehicle inventory. You have to have repair space, like repair service space, that type of thing. There are obviously franchise requirements that Volvo and Kia both have. So we'll have to design, whatever ends up happening, if we keep a dealership there, will have to be designed to meet those new franchise requirements, which are changing all of the time. I think, Open Road, which is the operator of the dealerships, would like to keep a dealership, those 2 dealerships there, but what configuration they take, I don't know. Could you put all the new vehicle inventory and service bays into a combined parking garage? Could that parking garage be shared with the city? Could it be shared with other users in the Gordon Road Triangle? Anything's a possibility. So what form that takes is to be determined. And I think the same thing's true with the city's property yard. I think it was determined, I don't want to speak for city staff, but I think it was determined that this is the location. There's no better location in the city of Falls Church for its property yard needs than the Gordon Road Triangle. There's just not a lot of space in a 2.2 square mile city. It's what form does it take, right? Could it be vertically integrated with, have a high bay, service bays or parking above, that's below a self-storage facility? Could it be below multifamily residential? Could it be, how is it integrated? All of those things have to be determined. And so what the triangle looks like now versus what it's going to look like 15 years from now, again, I couldn't tell you. I think that's why it's important to start planning for it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Next, we have Robert Perito.
Thank you very much. I want to start with a very basic question, and that is exactly what of all of this that we've been discussing, this 22-acre site, is the subject of the SSPA that in the end the Board of Supervisors will have to decide on June 10th. How much of this are we dealing with right now?
Stephen, I don't know if you want to take that, but again, the triangle itself is 22 acres and the nomination is about 2.4 of those 22 acres, which is just a portion of the county part of the Gordon Road Triangle. And so, Stephen, I don't know if you want to go to the second slide I have in my presentation, which shows it in sort of plan view, that one right there. So the area that's the subject of this nomination technically is only those portions that are shaded in red.
Okay, so then this nomination for that 2.4 acre site will go forward on its own, and that's really what we're talking about right now.
Correct. And again, well, go ahead, Stephen. I don't know if you want
to. I was going to say this is the portion that has to go forth on its own through the county's processes. But as Andrew was saying, there needs to be a lot of coordination between the county and the city to make sure that if something happens here, that it's a high quality plan that's put in place in both the county standards, the citizen standards, and also the city standards as well. So, and the nominator standards.
Okay. I have another question. Within this triangle, there are what you might call legacy businesses. There are businesses that seem to be rather vibrant and they fill a need for the community. What happens with those businesses?
So we wrote into our nomination that legacy businesses, there would be an emphasis on preserving those. David and Rebecca Tax, which own or operate Lazy Mike's, I mean, they catered my wedding. I mean, these are long-standing institutions in the Falls Church community, and that will have to be dealt with in time. And what we're talking about here is really, could be a decade or more out. But I think an emphasis really would be on preserving those legacy businesses. That's extremely important to the buyers.
And also there's a Falls Church City Recycling Center, which looks rather toxic. That's sort of at the end of this triangle, if I'm correct. What happens to that? What's the plan for that if you're going to bring residential into this area?
So that would be a part of the city's property yard, the 5.5 acres that the city has as its property yard. And that would have to be a part of any future replanting efforts. And as I mentioned in the presentation, the city did a study that it issued last May, which showed, it kind of set forth what the needs were, like how many bus bays do they need? What does the Falls Church Homeless Shelter need? Do we need a public safety center for the city? What's the recycling center going to look like? All of those things are set forth in that Fox Architects study. And that was presented to City Council. No decision has yet been made by council about which direction they're going to go in with any of the property yard, facilities.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yep. Thank you, Robert. Next, we have Mustafa El Nahas.
Yes, hello. I live in next to West Falls Church Station, car free. So I really use the Washington and Old Dominion Trail to come back to West Falls Church Station area. And there was always a lot of debris on the ground and even cables on the ground. I don't know if it's going to electrode, I'll be shocked with it or not. So I'm really happy that you mentioned that there are going to be a lot of trail improvements and sidewalk improvements. So I really fully support this development because it's really it matches the area, especially that Falls Church City are also planning to develop the mall. And there's going to be development for the McDonald's, as mentioned in the map. So this is really a very good development. And thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, Mustafa. We have Lenore Green. Oh, Garon, I'm sorry.
I'm Lenore Guerin. I am the president of the Falls Place Homeowners Association, which is the townhouse cluster on the corner of Gordon's Road and Shreve Road, pretty much opposite the property yard. I was relieved to see the information about the improvements on Shreve Road, which are desperately needed. No one is whether that is even going to be adequate for the increase in car traffic, because of course there's the property that's been redeveloped where the high school used to be is going to produce a lot more traffic, and during rush hour Shreve Road is very congested. And so my suggestion is that to the extent that plan here calls for residential entities which are going to have cars, is that it be so constructed that when they get in their cars to exit and go out into the world, that instead of adding to the congestion on Shreve Road, they need to be routed down the proposed parallel street and exit via Gordon's Road, because otherwise the improvements will definitely not be enough to handle the increase in cars during the rush hour periods and maybe altogether.
All right, thank you. We'll definitely add that to the citizens' considerations that are put forth before the Planning Commission, and if with that consideration, if this does become a plan amendment, that information will also be provided to FCDOT for their analysis, because this will require a transportation study as well. It's my understanding based on the just based on the proposed amount of density that's being proposed. So
thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm checking the chat, and it looks like we had a question about whether or not the proposal would consist of condos or apartments for the proposed residential space, and what are the height considerations that are being discussed. it, from my understanding, at this point, they have not determined a height. And I think Andrew kind of alluded to that earlier. And I'm also not sure because they don't have a true proposal before the county right now. This is just a proposal for putting something in the comprehensive plan that allows something to happen in the future. I'm not sure if they've, Andrew can probably answer, but I'm not sure if they've contemplated whether condos or apartments would be included. But from the county standpoint, we consider apartments and condos to be multifamily residential uses. And we also don't have an issue if a single development has a mix of apartments and townhomes within the same development. If that helps answer that question from Christopher Harlow. And again, Andrew may have something else to add to that.
No, I think that's right. And I think that during the planning process, issues of height, issues of density, that would all be part of the planning process, right? We don't have those answers right now.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. We have another question from Betty, it looks like.
Yes. So the triangle is the thing on the screen that is with the white dashed lines. That's the triangle.
Correct. That's what.
Okay, and so the part in the county is the nomination property, and also the part on the lower left where
correct.
That's also part of the county, west of Gordon's Road. Okay, so how much of, and I understand the property yard is that kind of jug handle thing between the nomination property and the other part of the county property. So how much of the other part of the triangle is owned by the Beyer family?
There is, it's about, I think it's like 16 acres or so. It's a substantial amount because, as you know, they have the dealership, the Kia dealership, they have the rest of the Volvo dealership, and on north of Gordon's Road. And then as you head south of Gordon's Road, they have their service, the Beyer Volvo service. They have the new showroom, and then they also have like Smokey's Garage as you head, closer to the WNOD Trail. And they have a couple of other parcels here and there that they've picked up over the years.
Okay, and they also own part of the nomination property as well, right?
That's exactly right. So the nomination property, Betty, is 2.4 acres, and they own all but about 0.34 acres, and that 0.34 acres is the animal hospital property.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Seeing no more hands and no additional questions in the chat, I just want to thank everyone for attending tonight, and I will try to catch up with my closing slide, kind of let everyone know how you can continue to stay informed throughout the screening process that will lead to the Planning Commission's recommendation for the Board of Supervisors. At the top of our screen in the kind of dark teal colored text, you can see some links for a public input, engage fairfaxcounty.gov at 2025 SSPA site, which kind of serves as a survey where you can go in and answer some questions about the process and about and provide any additional comments you'd like to have considered about any of the nominations that we discussed tonight, or any of the other nominations that were even nominations that haven't been discussed tonight. And you can email us at dpdsspa@fairfaxcounty.gov, and you can also follow the bit.ly link to the SSPA website to the SSPA webpage that you see here. And again, just as you saw tonight, all feedback is welcome, and everything that you provide us will be passed on to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors as they decide which of these sites will go on to the work program. So with that, next, staff will be summarizing the feedback that you all have provided tonight and putting it in a package for the Planning Commission workshops that are coming up. And you see those under the key tentative dates, with the first workshop on Thursday, May 1st, and then the second on Thursday, May 15th. And then a third on Thursday, May 22nd, and then those would all be followed by the Planning Commission's markup of the for their recommendations on the work program on June 5th, and all those meetings will take place starting at 7:30, just like tonight's community meeting did. So we hope that you all found this information to be helpful tonight, and we encourage you all to continue following up with us with any other things that you'd like us to include in the considerations that go before the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. And with that, we can end tonight's meeting. And again, on behalf of the of Fairfax County, I just want to thank everyone for your participation. It was really helpful and really informative tonight. Thank you.